But it always gives you a good bottom when you get a large player over-levered that goes to zero.
If SBF knocked on your door again and said, look, I failed in my last venture, I have a new crypto venture, I need money, would you back him?
Despite being a large investor of FTX, Kevin O'Leary reveals why he believes that the FTX crash will actually push crypto into the right direction. Throughout this highlight, O'Leary surprisingly speaks very highly of Sam Bankman-Fried. He has a unique perspective of him that will change the way that you looked at him. You wouldn't want to miss this.
Kev, I want to take you to a video over here. I'm sure you've seen it 100 times in the last couple of days. I'm going to show it again, specifically this video.
Oh, thank you very much.
Trite. Let me explain how bottoms are made in any market. I don't care if you're in equities or in debt or in crypto or in real estate. You always need a big player to go to zero. That always helps, whether it's long-term capital or whether it's one of these crypto infrastructure companies. I would like to see, and I don't want this to happen, but it always gives you a good bottom when you get a large player over-levered that goes to zero. And that always tends to be the beginning of the rebuilding process. So if you have to sacrifice someone who used too much leverage, and it's always leverage that does this, somebody's over-levered, positions are complicated, they're not transparent, they're not liquid, and they go to zero. Someone is out there on the brink of zero. That's okay. In fact, I'd argue that's a good thing when we get it. Now, do we get it?
Okay, so you were arguing that someone has to go to zero. I think what I want to get is a few things from you. The first thing is, why do you think that someone has to go to zero for this industry to turn? Why is that the thinking?
To force regulation. We can't move forward without regulation. And we've been stalled out as the various regulators fight the turf wars over who should regulate what. For example, should stablecoin be regulated by the Fed that oversees currency, or should it be regulated by the SEC? Or should it be regulated by the agency that does payment systems? While they fight, there's no regulation and we can't advance. I feel terrible for all the retail investors that got wiped out here, but this whole industry can't advance as it should without regulation, because we can't attract sovereign wealth and pension to it. They refuse to invest because they have no platform to do it on a compliant basis. And they're certainly not going to invest on an unregulated rogue platform. I don't pick any one of them. These unregulated platforms are never going to get institutional capital after what's happened here, ever. Not now, not ever. So the whole point is we need this regulation. In addition, crypto's not going away. It's too productive. It's too useful. It provides a lot of services with transparency and lower cost than the existing systems do today. And I'm talking about, whether you want ACH or a SWIFT transfer or a Fed wire, these things are really old and inefficient and very expensive. Just on payment systems alone, I'd like to use a stable coin for my businesses, and I intend to do that as soon as the regulations pass. Now, along with others, I'm not the only one, I'm going to be spending a lot more time in Washington really firing up my voice on getting this regulation through. I'm not the only person that's going to be doing this. I'm tired of waiting for it. I think we're very, very inefficient, and it's time to move. And this onion that's being unpeeled is going to get much worse by the time this is over. The amount of hedge funds, you just detailed one of them. There are countless others that are going to go to zero. So this is going to have a very, very powerful impact in terms of loss of capital.
I want to show you a clip. Now, before I show you the clip, I mean, let's take it from where it comes. It comes from Fox News. So we know that where Fox News sit on the Democrats versus Republicans. But just listen to the intro here.
This is bigger than Bernie Madoff. But unlike Bernie Madoff, who was getting rich off a Ponzi scheme, the Democratic Party was getting rich off of FTX. Now, FTX came onto the scene in 2019, and it spent $10 million to put Joe Biden in the White House in 2020. And the guy running FTX, the second biggest Democrat donor in the midterms, after Soros, of course, spent $40 million to get Democrats elected.
So they're spinning it around SBF and his political connections with the Democrats. What are your views there? Do you think that there is egg all over the Democrats' faces here because here's their biggest donor and no action was done? He was meeting with Gary Gensler. There are quotes that, I want to just quickly show you one of these quotes. Hold on a second to try and find these quotes. It says, I want to be clear about saying the SEC was on the brink of offering relief and exemptions for FTX because FTX was considered an adult in the room in DC who said the right things and whose family had favorable political connections to Gary Gensler, who was asleep at the wheel. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's going to burn. This story will burn out in 48 hours, and I'll tell you why. Gensler's agenda and his calendar is public. Sam Bankman-Fried made multiple attempts in Washington to get regulation, particularly on options trading and derivative trading around crypto. And he met with everybody. He was one of the loudest voices towards getting regulation because he wanted to be able to do it in the US and have the same feature set that the international platform had in the US, which it didn't have. So if you in order to use all the features of the FTX platform, you couldn't do it in the US. You had to register it in another country. And so he was very, very active doing that. So look, obviously politics being what it is, they're going to try and make a big story out of this. But at the end of the day, I don't think this one has any teeth because you can find him meeting with both sides of the aisle, as many people did, going to Washington, trying to advance one of these digital bills, like the Digital Commodities Act or the Transparent Stablecoin Act. He was, and his team were very, very active there. They were in Washington all the time. So look, it's obviously he gave more to the Democrats because his family is Democratic.
Would you say that this feels like a bottom?
Yes, I do think it is the bottom, but here's what has to finish. We need the rest of the pieces or the rest of the pine cones to fall off the tree. There's many, many forced liquidations coming in the next 10 days. I would argue the time to reposition, and this is a really interesting conversation I had with our auditors yesterday over the weekend. We are obviously going to be taking this as a write-off, and it's a tax loss. There's no question about that. We're not going to reestablish our positions until 31 days later, because this is the first year where the IRS and other regulators, tax regulators around the world, are treating this asset in the same way they treat stocks. So I would think there'll be a lot of selling between now and maybe mid-December, December 15th. I will be reestablishing positions, but I'll tell you something else. What we're going to need here is to take the simplest act, and that is the transparency around the Stablecoin Act. Get that signed. That has nothing to do with Bitcoin or any other token, but it does signal that the regulator is now looking at payment systems like USDC. That will be very positive for the crypto market, and I anticipate that will happen in the next few months. And that's because the midterms are over. The House is controlled by Republicans. That's what it looks like, and they're more positive on getting this done.
Yeah, I mean it's a split government, which is, as you said, amazing for the markets. The markets are rolling it out. Kev, I have one more question for you. I've got 2 more minutes with you in the interest of time. I watch Shark Tank. One of the things you've said repeatedly on Shark Tank is that you are happy and you prefer to back entrepreneurs that have failed before because they've got more experience, they've failed before. If SBF knocked on your door again and said, look, I failed in my last venture, I have a new crypto venture, I need money, would you back him?
That's a great question. No one's asked me yet. I think we can all admit, you can love him or hate him given what's happened, but he was one of the most brilliant traders in the crypto universe. He also built one of the most robust platforms. We used FTX actively. It was a very robust platform that allowed us to get information on a compliant basis. So I really like what he built.
Would you back him?
The answer would be yes. And I'll tell you how I would do it. I would do it in a different context. He would not have operational control of the assets. He would have trading control. And you're going to find, assuming he doesn't get involved in a bad situation somehow personally, that he will be found somewhere else in crypto. I know all the players in the crypto market, and I'm just telling you, there's nobody quite like him. And you're asking, I'm transparent, I'm honest.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, Sam Bankman-Fried is an unusual 1% person in terms of understanding how these assets work. And if I could put him on my team in a very straight vertical where he doesn't have the ability to move assets around, but has the ability to trade them, yeah, I would.
Do you think he's going to land up in jail?
Don't know. I'll tell you why. All of the institutions, including me, have hired various law firms over the weekend. I need to see the trading agreements. I will see them. I'll see the agreements between FTX and Alameda and other outside entities. We don't know if what those agreements are, because most people, you got to remember something. FTX and Sam were Americans, and a lot of people took comfort in that, including the largest financial institutions in the world. The cap table beside me as investors, there's none like it. I mean, the largest financial global institutions in the world were very comfortable to invest in FTX at a 32 billion valuation. Yes, we have egg on our faces, but we met the team, we met the parents, we met Sam, and for all the negative things being said about him, I don't know of a more productive and efficient and disciplined, for a while anyways, trader of crypto. And I got to tell you something, there are very few that could do what he did. And look, does he end up in jail? No idea. Was he brilliant? Was he in the 1%? Yes, he was. And he still is. So I rest my case, Your Honor. We'll have to see where this goes.
Click here to watch Kevin O'Leary's shocking reaction to the FTX crash that lost him millions. You don't want to miss this.